Have you ever felt like you're caught in the whirlwind of life, rushing from one day to the next, but never quite sure where you're headed? Have you found yourself asking, what is the real purpose of it all? Why am I here? And what does it all mean? Well, if these questions sound familiar, you're not alone. These are some of the most profound inquiries we can ask ourselves, and they've been on the minds of philosophers for centuries. One of the most striking answers comes from the French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre. But here's the twist. What if the path to answering these questions doesn't lie in abstract philosophy alone? What if there's a way to apply Sartre's powerful ideas in a way that brings us peace and clarity in our daily lives? What if we could merge Sartre's existential freedom with the gentle teachings of Buddhism? Imagine a life where we are free to create our essence, but do so with mindfulness, compassion, and awareness. How would that change how we see ourselves and the world around us? In today's video, we'll explore how Sartre's existentialism, with its radical ideas of freedom and self-creation, aligns with the wisdom of Buddhism. Together, we'll dive into how these two powerful perspectives can guide us toward inner peace, freedom from external expectations, and most importantly, a deeper understanding of ourselves as we navigate the later years of our journey. So let's embark on this enlightening journey step by step, where philosophy meets mindfulness and our quest for self-awareness becomes a path to freedom. The fork and the train. What do they have in common? Imagine, just for a moment, a fork and a train. Seems like an odd pair, doesn't it? You might be wondering what they could possibly have in common. But hold on, bear with me, because the connection is quite fascinating. Picture a fork in your hand. What does it do? It's simple, right? It's designed for one thing: to help us eat. Now, think about a train. It's a little more complex, but still, it serves a clear function to transport people, goods, and all sorts of things across distances. Both the fork and the train were created with a specific inherent purpose. They each have a role to fulfill, and when they don't, they're considered, well, bad, aren't they? A fork that bends under pressure, or a train that never shows up on time, frustrating, right? But here's the twist that Sartre introduces, and it's a game changer. He tells us that humans, we are nothing like forks or trains. Unlike these objects, we weren't born with a predetermined essence or a built-in purpose. We are free. Yes, you read that right. We are free to create our own meaning. We are the ones who get to define who we are, what we become, and the path we choose to walk in this vast world. It's as if we are handed a blank canvas and a paintbrush, with the entire world as our art studio, waiting for us to make our mark. Now let's be honest, this kind of freedom can feel terrifying. Imagine waking up every day knowing you have to figure everything out. Every choice, every action, every step, all on your own. It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it? What if we don't know where to start? What if we make the wrong choices? What if we're just lost in the sea of possibilities? But here's the thing, this idea of existential freedom ties in beautifully with something we often talk about in Buddhism: mindfulness. In Buddhist teachings, we are encouraged to be present, to live fully in each moment, and to release the heavy burden of preordained expectations. You see, while Sartre's philosophy pushes us into the vast ocean of choice, it's through mindfulness that we learn to navigate these waters without drowning in anxiety. We can exist in the present, not as passive spectators, but as active creators of our own experiences. Much like Sartre's freedom, Buddhism teaches us that while life may not come with a clear instruction manual, we do have the ability to shape each moment with intention, to choose how we respond to the world around us. Think about it. just as a fork is shaped to serve a purpose and a train exists to take us from one place to another, we too can define ourselves, moment by moment, through our actions and choices. In both Sartre's Existentialism and Buddhist Mindfulness, the power lies in our hands. It's our freedom, our responsibility, and in the end, our peace. So while we may not have a fixed essence, we have the most precious gift of all, the ability to create our own. And isn't that in itself the most beautiful purpose of all? Sartre's freedom and Buddhism's impermanence. At the very heart of Sartre's philosophy lies a statement that shakes the foundation of how we see ourselves. Existence precedes essence. Take a moment to let that sink in. What does it really mean? It means that we are not born with a preordained purpose or meaning. No, we come into this world first, without a script or a set of instructions on how we should live. We simply exist. It's only through our experiences, our actions, and the choices we make that we start to define who we are and what our essence will be. Imagine that every single moment is an opportunity to shape yourself, to carve out a life that resonates with meaning, crafted by your very own hands. This is the essence of Sartre's existentialism, the radical freedom to be whoever we want to be. Now let's pivot to a profound idea that also touches on the fluidity of our existence. The Buddhist concept of impermanence, anicca. Buddhism teaches us that everything changes, nothing stays the same. Whether it's the changing seasons, the shifting tides of our emotions, or the way our bodies age with time, change is the only constant in life. And here, we see a beautiful parallel with Sartre's thinking. If existence precedes essence, then it means that our essence too is in a constant state of flux. Just as our lives are not fixed, neither are the meanings we attach to them. Every day, we are living in a world of becoming, never in a state of stasis. Think about it. In Sartre's view, there is no fixed essence that defines who we are. Our essence is created by the choices we make and the actions we take. This fluidity, however, does not equate to uncertainty. Quite the opposite. It's liberating. You are free to reinvent yourself, to choose who you become, and to make your own purpose in this ever-changing world. This ties beautifully with the Buddhist perspective. The awareness that nothing is permanent and everything is in motion gives us the freedom to let go of attachments, to stop clinging to the past, and to embrace the beauty of the present moment. Take a look at your life. Wherever you are right now, it's all part of a process. The relationships that once seemed permanent are in constant motion, evolving, or sometimes drifting apart. Your body may be changing, and your thoughts may no longer reflect who you once were. But instead of viewing these changes with resistance, Buddhism encourages us to accept them as natural. The peace we seek comes from acknowledging this impermanence, from embracing change rather than fearing it. And so, just like Sartre's idea that we are free to shape our own essence, Buddhism reminds us that change is not something to fight against, but to flow with. In this freedom, we find our greatest strength, the ability to live fully in the moment, to create meaning, to choose purpose, and to appreciate the fleeting nature of life. In a world where nothing is permanent, the real wisdom lies in accepting the flow of existence with grace. Embrace the freedom to shape your essence and find peace in the only moment you truly have, the present. The canvas of life. Sartre, in his raw and unflinching view of human existence, made an assertion that resonates deeply with anyone who's ever wondered about their place in the world. Our lives are like a blank canvas. Think about it, unmarked, untarnished, and brimming with possibility. But here's the catch, and it's one that could either paralyze you with fear or empower you with immense freedom. We are the painters. Every single decision, Every action, every tiny choice we make holds the power to shape the meaning of our existence. It's as if the brush is already in your hand, and the world around you waits for you to make your first stroke. The blank canvas of your life is open for interpretation, for you to color, to shape, and to craft into something that reflects who you are and who you want to become. Now, Sartre's metaphor is powerful, but let me take you down a slightly different path, one that intertwines beautifully with Buddhist wisdom. Imagine an old monk sitting serenely under a tree in a small, peaceful village. One day, a weary traveler, clearly burdened with the weight of life's struggles, approaches him and asks, "Master, I feel lost. I don't know what to do with my life. I am overwhelmed by doubt and confusion." Without hesitation, the monk replies with a gentle smile and says, "Imagine your life as a garden. You are the gardener, and you have the power to plant whatever you wish. If you plant seeds of fear, regret, and anger, these are the things that will grow. But if you plant seeds of love, kindness, and wisdom, then these are the fruits you'll harvest." The beauty of this simple yet profound story lies in its metaphor. Just as we have the ability to choose what to plant in a garden, we also choose the seeds that will shape our lives. Do we allow fear and anger to take root, or do we choose love and wisdom to nurture our hearts? The truth is, our lives are shaped by the seeds we choose to plant, whether we realize it or not. Every decision we make, whether to forgive, to be patient, or to give love, is like planting a seed that will eventually grow into something that will influence our future and the people around us. It's not always easy. Fear often feels like the more comfortable seed to plant. It's familiar, it's safe, it keeps us inside the walls of what we know. But here's the thing, as the monk wisely pointed out, those seeds of fear, regret, and anger, they don't just stay within us. They grow, and they extend their roots into the lives of others. They affect our relationships, our decisions, and how we see the world. On the other hand, when we plant seeds of love, compassion, and wisdom, not only do we start to change our own lives, but we create ripples that touch the lives of others. Those seeds don't just stay within the garden, they bloom and spread, enriching the world around us. In this way, we begin to see that the canvas of life is not just for our own creation. It is for everyone we meet, for every connection we form, for every moment we experience. So the next time you stand before your own blank canvas, ask yourself, what seeds am I planting today? What am I choosing to create in my life? Because the masterpiece you're painting, one choice at a time, will ripple far beyond what you could ever imagine. And remember, it's not just the canvas of your life, it's the masterpiece of all lives, intertwined, connected by the choices we make. The burden of freedom, Buddhist view on responsibility. Sartre's existential philosophy is often seen as liberating, a call to embrace the freedom to define ourselves. But with that boundless freedom comes a weight that many of us are reluctant to bear: responsibility. Sartre argues that we are free to choose our own path in life, free to shape our essence through the choices we make. However, this freedom is not without its burden. With each decision, whether small or large, we are held accountable for its consequences. In other words, we cannot escape the repercussions of our actions. And that's where things get tricky, doesn't it? We might crave freedom, but the idea that we are entirely responsible for our lives, every moment of it, can be overwhelming. The thought of being the sole creator of our reality brings both a rush of excitement and a deep sense of fear. What if we choose wrong? What if our choices hurt others? The freedom Sartre promises comes wrapped in a heavy, almost suffocating responsibility. This idea of freedom and responsibility aligns with a core teaching in Buddhism: right action, samma kammanta, Part of the Noble Eightfold Path, right action reminds us that every action we take, every word we speak, and every thought we entertain carries a ripple effect. Just as Sartre insists that our actions shape our destiny, Buddhism teaches us that our actions shape our reality. Every step we take can either lead us closer to peace or pull us deeper into suffering. The key, however, is in the mindfulness with which we approach each moment. We're not meant to act blindly, overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility. Instead, we're called to act with awareness, to consider the impact of our choices on ourselves and others, and to understand that every moment is an opportunity to either heal or harm. But here's the twist that both Sartre and Buddhism agree on. It's not about feeling paralyzed by guilt. The burden of freedom doesn't need to become a source of anxiety or regret. Both philosophies urge us to step into our power without being weighed down by the past. Buddhism teaches us to live with intention, with a heart and mind clear of attachment to outcomes. Just as Sartre encourages us to embrace freedom, even amidst its chaos, Buddhism invites us to see that freedom is not just about the decisions we make. It's about how we respond to the world we create with those decisions. There is a profound peace in knowing that we are responsible for our actions, but not doomed by them. We can choose to correct course, to learn from missteps, and to take ownership of our life without letting guilt cloud our journey. Imagine it like this. You're walking a path through a dense forest, and you come across a fork in the road. Sartre would say you're free to choose whichever direction feels right to you. But Buddhism adds another layer. Before you take that first step, pause. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Listen to the wind whispering through the trees, and then decide. Don't just rush into the freedom of the choice. Be mindful of the direction you're choosing, and when you make the wrong turn, don't despair. You're free to turn back, to choose again, and with each choice, you move closer to wisdom, to peace. So yes, the freedom that Sartre speaks of is liberating, but it's also a responsibility we carry, not with regret, but with mindfulness. Every action, every choice, shapes the reality we live in. And if we approach this responsibility with awareness and compassion, we find that the burden of freedom is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Bad faith and the self. A Buddhist perspective on denial. Sartre's concept of bad faith hits at the very heart of human struggle, the self-deception that traps us in a life of illusion. At its core, bad faith is the act of convincing ourselves that we are not free, that we are somehow chained by the expectations of society, by the roles we are assigned, or by some imagined fate. Think about it. How often have we found ourselves saying things like, "I don't have a choice," or "this is just how things are," when faced with a difficult decision? In those moments, we are deceiving ourselves into believing that we have no agency, that we are simply passive participants in a world that's too big and too powerful for us to change. Sartre argues that this is the very essence of bad faith, when we deny our freedom, when we refuse to see that we have the power to shape our own lives. Now, let's take a step back and explore how this notion of bad faith mirrors something deep within Buddhism. In Buddhist philosophy, there is a concept known as ignorance, avidya, and it serves as the root of all suffering. Ignorance isn't just about a lack of knowledge, but more profoundly, it's about the refusal to see reality as it is. It's the tendency to remain blind to the truth of our existence. Just like Sartre's bad faith, ignorance is a way of avoiding responsibility, of turning a blind eye to the fact that we are creators of our own destiny. When we live in ignorance, we remain trapped in the illusion that we are victims of circumstance, rather than empowered agents capable of shaping our lives. But here's the beautiful part. The Buddha's teachings offer us a way out. Wisdom, prajna, is the antidote to ignorance. Through mindfulness, self-reflection and meditation, we are invited to pierce through the veil of illusion and see things clearly. In Buddhism, wisdom isn't about accumulating knowledge, but about understanding the truth of our experience, about realizing that we are not bound by external forces, but rather we are the ones who create meaning in our lives. We have the power, just as Sartre describes, to act freely, to choose our path, to live authentically. And in that authenticity, we begin to break free from the chains of bad faith and ignorance. Consider for a moment the incredible liberation that comes when we realize that we are not victims of fate, but agents of change. When we take full responsibility for our lives, recognizing that we are free to choose, the world shifts. Instead of feeling powerless, we become empowered. The choices we make, whether in how we respond to difficulties, how we treat others, or how we approach life itself, become a reflection of our true self, not some false identity imposed by society or by the limitations of our past. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness gives us the tools to awaken from the slumber of bad faith. By staying present, by observing our thoughts and actions without judgment, we begin to see that we are the ones who choose how to react to life. Just like Sartre's call to live authentically, Buddhism calls us to step out of ignorance and into the light of awareness, to realize our capacity for freedom and transformation. So the next time you feel yourself slipping into bad faith, when you start believing that you have no other choice, or that your life is just a series of random events over which you have no control, remember that you have the power to change. You have the ability to act with wisdom, to free yourself from the prison of ignorance, and to live a life that is truly yours. In that, you will find not only freedom but peace. And just like that, you'll be living authentically, the way Sartre and Buddhism both encourage us to do. Sartre's hell is other people, and Buddhism's compassion. One of the most famous and perhaps controversial quotes from Sartre is, "Hell is other people." It strikes a nerve, doesn't it? On the surface, it sounds harsh, even cynical. Sartre, in his existentialist lens, paints a picture of a reality where our sense of self is constantly being shaped, often painfully, by the judgments and perceptions of others. He argues that when we are too aware of how others see us, we become imprisoned by their expectations. It's as though we are living in a world where everyone is watching, and every glance is a mirror reflecting something we might not want to see. This creates a constant tension, an internal struggle between who we truly are and who others think we are. Sartre's notion speaks to the anxiety that arises from feeling controlled by the world's gaze, a kind of suffocating confinement that leaves us gasping for breath, desperate to break free from the roles and judgments imposed on us by others. But, and here's where it gets interesting, Buddhism offers a completely different approach to this dilemma. Instead of seeing others as threats to our freedom, Buddhism encourages us to embrace compassion and loving kindness, two central practices that form the very foundation of Buddhist philosophy. Through these teachings, we are invited to step back from the tension of being constantly judged and to see all beings not as obstacles but as interconnected. Karuna, compassion, and metta, loving kindness, remind us that everyone is on their own journey, struggling, growing, learning, just like we are. When we meet others with compassion, we free ourselves from the need to define ourselves through their eyes. Imagine a world where we don't need to measure our worth by the judgments of others. This doesn't mean we ignore the fact that others may judge us. It's about shifting our perspective. In Buddhism, we are not controlled by these judgments. In fact, we are called to rise above them. When someone looks at us with disapproval, we don't have to take that on as our own truth. Instead, we respond with understanding, seeing that their judgment comes from their own perceptions, biases, and experiences, not from the core of who we truly are. The practice of metta, the wish for others to be happy, safe, and at peace, doesn't just free us from the tension Sartre describes. It also softens our hearts, allowing us to see the world through a lens of empathy rather than fear. Compassion tells us that every being is suffering in some way, and rather than feeling trapped by their perceptions of us, we can embrace them with kindness. When we meet the world with this openness, we're not prisoners to the judgments of others anymore. We are free to walk our own path, defined by our own intentions, not by the perceptions of those around us. So while Sartre's hell is other people may resonate with those who feel confined by society's expectations, Buddhism offers a sweet escape, compassionate freedom. In this freedom, we do not feel imprisoned by others. Instead, we are reminded of the interconnectedness of all beings, and that through kindness and understanding, we can step beyond judgment and live authentically. The liberation comes not from shutting out the world, but from meeting it with an open heart, free from the chains of expectation. Hell is not other people, after all. It's our own resistance to seeing them with compassion. As we come to the end of this exploration into Sartre's existentialism and its connection with Buddhist teachings, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on your own life. Think about it. How have you shaped your essence? Have you fully embraced the freedom to create meaning in your life? Or have you, perhaps unknowingly, allowed yourself to be defined by external forces, by the expectations and judgments of others? The beauty of life lies in the fact that we are constantly at a crossroads, with the ability to choose who we become. In every moment, there is the potential for transformation, for reinvention, and for the freedom to shape the path ahead of us. In your later years, as time gives us the opportunity to look back with wisdom and clarity, Buddhism offers a gentle yet powerful guide. It encourages us to live with mindfulness, to be present in each moment, and to act with compassion, not just toward others, but also toward ourselves. Just as Sartre challenges us to create our essence from the inside out, Buddhism calls us to live consciously, to recognize that our actions are reflections of our deepest truths. Each choice we make, whether it's to act out of kindness, to forgive, or to let go of past burdens, becomes a step toward inner peace, a deeper sense of fulfillment, and ultimately freedom. Life in many ways is like that blank canvas Sartre speaks of. It's a fresh start, an open space waiting for us to paint our own picture. The world, with all its distractions, will attempt to fill it with its own demands and expectations, but it's up to us to pick up the brush and choose the colors. Through the practice of mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion, we have the power to paint a life full of meaning, one that is not dictated by the judgments of others, but shaped by our own hearts and intentions. So, as you go forward, I encourage you to keep this in mind. You are the artist of your life. The choices you make today will define your tomorrow. Embrace your freedom. Let it flow through every action, every decision, and every relationship. By doing so, you'll create not only a life of purpose, but one that radiates peace and love, touching everyone you encounter along the way. Thank you so much for watching. If this video resonated with you and inspired some reflection, please consider subscribing to Quiet Wisdom. We are on a journey together to explore and share these teachings, and by subscribing, you'll never miss a moment of this path. If you know someone who could benefit from these reflections, please share this video with them. It may be the spark they need. Until next time, may your path be peaceful, and may your heart remain open to the endless possibilities that freedom and mindfulness bring.